says to Moshe Rabbeinu, fifth line, he says, 464, Ve'ata hakre ve'lecha es Aaron achicha, draw near Aaron and his sons, ve'ezbanav ito mitoch b'nei Yisrael, l'chanoli, draw Aaron and his sons near to make them kohanim. Aaron nadav v'aviu elazar yisamar b'nei Aaron. It seems a bit repetitive over here. Aaron's name appears 3 times in the pasuk. Draw near Aaron your brother and his sons, mitoch b'nei Yisrael, from among the Jewish people, to make him a kohen. And who are they? Aaron, Nadav, and Avi Elazar, Yisamar, b'nei Aaron. So there's a lot of emphasis here on Aaron, and you draw them near. Now, the first issue you always suspect, why should Aaron be the kohen gadol? Right? Lahavdil elef alfei havdalos. John Kennedy was the president. Who was his attorney general? Robert Kennedy was his attorney general. And that looks like nepotism to me. The truth of the matter is that Robert Kennedy was actually qualified, and he went after the mafia. Robert Kennedy was actually a very efficient attorney general, but it certainly looks kind of, as the English would say, it looks kind of dodgy. You're the president, you make your brother the attorney general. It looks like, it's like, see here, Moshe's the what do you call, the leader? Oh, his brother Aaron's going to be the Kohen Gadol. The Torah wants us to know right away, this had nothing to do with Moshe Rabbeinu. Aaron was qualified on his own. Where do you see that? Because it says, draw Aaron near mitoch b'nei Yisrael. From among the b'nei Yisrael, that means of all the people of b'nei Yisrael, he's the one who's qualified. Not because he's your brother. Because mitoch b'nei Yisrael, of all the people, he's qualified. And by the way, when Moshe Rabbeinu was away all those years, when he ran away from Egypt, Aaron was the leader of the Jewish people in Egypt. He was getting prophecy. He was the Navi. He was the leader of the Jewish people. So mitoch b'nei Yisrael, and that's why it emphasizes his children, because sometimes even if you, I don't know if there's a verb called to nepotize, right? But if you activate nepotism, he nepotized him. But even if there was nepotism was limited to the father. Why do his sons get drawn in? That means that the Kohen and his sons, he's now inherently qualified to transmit it, because kahuna it goes from father to son. So Aaron is inherently qualified. But what I saw was very, very a remarkable concept. What the word, what do you call it? The word hakrev. What's a sacrifice called?
Korban.
A korban. Why is the word korban called a korban? Because you karov, from the word karov, to get near. By bringing an offering to God, what they translate as a sacrifice. A sacrifice meaning because you're giving something up. Theoretically, you're giving something up. You got to if you bring a sheep or a goat or a young bull to the Beis Hamikdash, you're giving up some serious cash. So a sacrifice is called a sacrifice, hakrev. Here, one of the commentaries says over here, there's no accident why it's called hakrev over here. Moshe Rabbeinu needs to bring a korban. He needs an atonement for himself. Moshe needs an atonement. For what? So we said yesterday, he was originally supposed to be the Kohen Gadol. By complaining too much, or by resisting his mission, that's when the privilege was taken away from him. Well, that wasn't just a privilege because, you get honor. It's an opportunity to serve Hashem at a certain level. You need an atonement now, Moshe. You need an atonement. Your atonement is that you are going to appoint Aaron, to hakrev, elecha. Draw him near. Sometimes the word elecha can mean to you, and it can mean for you. Draw him near for you, for your benefit, because you, Moshe Rabbeinu, need an atonement that you did not get this position, so you're going to make Aaron the Kohen Gadol, and he's going to serve as an atonement for you. That's what the before it says. It's a very interesting thing, and the number one. Number two, you'll notice where it says the begadim. Ve'ela begadim asher yasu choshen ve'efodum il, down at the bottom of the page. Now, the Gemara says each one of the garments was an atonement for the Jewish people. That means when the Kohen Gadol wore, for example, he wore an ephod. The ephod is the apron on page which goes on his back, and the ephod, the ephod was was an atonement for idol worship. The choshen, which is the chest plate, was an atonement for corruption in law, for crookedness in din, for distorting judgment. The me'il that he wore, the robe, was an atonement for murder for the Jewish people. And the Gemara goes into a whole, what do you call it, a whole discussion why each one atones for the pants that he wore, the michnasayim was an atonement for immorality. Each one has an obvious connection to that area of life that it atones for. Be that as it may, each one of the 8 garments that the Kohen Gadol wore was an atonement for the Jewish people for something on a collective level. It serves as an atonement of protection for the Jewish level. Now, that doesn't mean that you can go around doing whatever you want. Well, I could murder people now because, after all, the Kohen Gadol atones for me. Because he's on an individual level, you have to do tshuva, number one. And number two, if a person is liable for a penalty, they're going to get the penalty. They're going to get the punishment. But for the Jewish people collectively, the same way that when we learn Torah, for example, when a person learns Torah, you're protecting the Jewish people. Torah protects us. Torah protects the Jewish people. The idea of what the Torah learner does for a Jewish person when we're learning Torah, so we believe, and now we believe, the Gemara says, that it's the Torah that allows people who are at war for the Jews, when the people who were at war for the Jewish people, their success at war was dependent on the people studying Torah. Torah has a power beyond man's comprehension of what Torah does for us. So when a person is learning Torah, you're protecting Jewish people. When the Kohen Gadol is wearing the garments, those garments are atoning for the Jewish people at some sort of spiritual level. Okay, now, watch this. One of the commentaries points out, why does it talk about, it says these are the clothing the garments he should make, and earlier, what did it describe them as for what? Lekavod uletiferes. The Torah says in Pasuk Beis, you should make these garments for Aharon, back on 464, lekavod uletiferes, for honor and for glory. Why did the Torah say you should make these garments for Aharon, that they should be an atonement for the Jewish people? Why are you emphasizing the kavod uletiferes? Why don't you emphasize the atonement aspect of it? So one of the Farshim says, very interesting, well, there's a positive and a negative. The positive is the honor and the glory. The negative, if you talk about an atonement, the Talmud tells us it's an atonement. But the Torah would say, well, there'll be an atonement for the Jewish people. That's kind of pessimistic, kind of negative. That means that the Jewish people sinned. That means that there might be idol worship. That means that there might be immorality, right? It's a negative. And therefore, the Torah is teaching us over here, when you have a choice of focusing on the positive, focus on the positive. And that's why when it comes to, obviously by extension, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, take chumashim, guys. Take chumashim. Don't sit without chumashim. When it comes to interpersonal relationships, a person obviously there's always something negative to find in other people. Let me ask you a question. You got a room full of people here. I don't know, depending on how well you know the people in the room, but you got a room full of people here. You have your parents, you have your family, you have friends, you have everything. If I would give you 2 lists, I want you to make a list of the positive attributes of everybody in this room, and I want you to make a list of the negative attributes of everybody in this room. Which would be easier? I want you to make me a list of the negative attributes of your in-laws, of the people on your block, of the people you went to school with, or make a list of the positive attributes. Which one do you think would be easier? Unfortunately. Huh? Give me a pen. Make my day. Give me a pen. I'd run out of ink so fast. Right? The positive, you write down, it's interesting. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So we have a policy in our house. We try at least. It's an interesting policy. If you're thinking anything good about anybody in the family, in the house, say it. If you're thinking it, say it. Because a lot of times people do say what they're thinking, but generally it's not the positive. Is it interesting or not? In human nature, well, you like that, right? If you're thinking it, say it. What are you worried? What do you think is going to happen? No, he doesn't want to hear it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And not only that, when you're married, the first thing that you're going to learn, certainly for the male, is if you're thinking compliment your wife constantly. Sometimes you ask a guy, have you complimented your wife? Say, listen, how many times I have to compliment her? How many times does she have to hear? I told her she's a great cook. How many times do you have to hear it? Why don't I say a question? Do you ever hear is a song you like? A specific song you like? Do you ever get tired of hearing that song? Not too much. For a woman, hearing a compliment from her husband is like a song. Men need to be complimented too. It's not like we're, don't worry about me, I'll be okay. No, I need the compliment also. But women thrive on it. They actually thrive on it. And I'll tell you a little secret. They should pay me for this, guys. If you're ever in trouble, if she ever nails you, you forgot, you left your clothes on the floor again. Yeah, well, I was so distracted by last night's supper was so good. I just got up. Really? What did you like best? Well, the chicken was and then as you should be heading for the door as you're doing this, right? Get out and close the door. And you could actually sometimes you can actually save your neck, because she'll look at you like, oh, okay. Okay. She knows what you were doing, but they can't get past it. They can't get past it. It's like a guy who's got who is subject to being bribed. He knows he shouldn't be doing it, but he just can't get past it. He'll take the cash and let you go. He just can't help himself anymore. So it's like, but to her it's like music. You never get tired of hearing music, of a song you like. You never get tired of it, as long as it's not jazz. As long as it's not jazz, because we don't like jazz, right? I know you do, right? You like jazz, right? Everybody, how many of you like jazz? How many of you like jazz? I show of hands. How many of you like jazz? Jazz, yeah. Right? Oh, thank you very much. Rabbi Salinger and I have been going at this for years. They're going at this for years, because my music you wouldn't want to hear, but what do you call it? But it always bothered me. Here, the Torah is telling you got an option of looking at people positive, looking at the negative. Why are you looking at the negative? Focus on the positive. You're thinking something good about somebody, say it. What does it hurt you to say it? And people need it. People thrive on that. So the Torah is telling you, and it's always there. And by the way, when you're like that, you yourself will be a happier person. When you look at the positive in other people, you yourself become. Why don't we do it? Men especially have trouble. Women are always like, oh, you look so nice today. Oh, it's so nice to see you. Women are always, building each other up. Men, it's always like there's like that kind of more of a we're kind of always stuching each other. There's always like that playful dig. That's how men. Women, it's always it's always oh, it's so wonderful to see you. that sort of thing. Lady calls me up at home. How women talk to you. Say, well, I answer with hello. She goes, hello, Rabbi Kaplan. Is your wonderful wife home? I said, no, my regular wife is home if you want to talk to her. There's silence on the other end of the phone. That's how they talk. It's always men don't talk that way. And it's a shame, because men are also we're not the big tough Rambos that we like to think we are. And therefore the Torah is telling you, look for the positive, and you'll be a happier person. Yeah, a person actually a happier person. Okay, enough said. Let's go on, because we're really way behind over here. In Pasuk Gimel, still on page 464. It's an important concept. These are, listen, Torah, there's no such thing as we've exhausted the subject. Torah is endless, limitless. Every letter, every word is a lesson in and of itself. Ve'ata tedaber al kol chachmei lev. I'm going to tell you an enchanting concept here. Ve'ata tedaber, you, Moshe, speak to all the chachmei lev, the men with wisdom in their heart, asher milesiv ruach chachma, who I have filled with wisdom. Ve'asu es bigdei Aharon lekacho lechano. They should make the garments of Aharon. You're going to need men at a very high level of wisdom here, Kabbalistic wisdom, right? Spiritual wisdom, because every stitch that's going to be made in the clothing of Aharon has to be made with the proper kavanas. It's like when you daven, you have kavan in your daven. So if you say the davening that we say, which we have in the Siddur. So that davening was compiled by the men of the Great Assembly. The Anshei Knesset Agdola, time in the second Beis Hamikdash. That means the words themselves have an inherent potency. But to the degree that you put kavana in it, kavana means that you're focused. Kavana doesn't mean that you're thinking all sorts of esoteric thoughts. Kavana means the degree that we're focused on the words, we could add more potency to it. If you say the words while you're spacing out, which we all do, by the way, spacing out during davening is very, very difficult to stay focused all the time. Even a small percentage of davening, if we're there for a small percentage, we're doing great. Remember, at least we're davening. At least we're there trying, as opposed to somebody who isn't. But when to the degree that you focus and concentrate, it adds potency to the davening. Because the men of the Great Assembly, they laced the davening, the words of the davening are laced with Ruach HaKodesh, with the potential to do things, because the men of the Anshei Knesset Agdola instilled it in the davening itself. The garments of the Kohen Gadol they are so potent that they, like we said, they atone for the Jewish people. So every stitch has to be made with kavanah. In all sorts of, and at that level, it had to be all of the very, the kavanah that reaches all the heavens and all concepts that are completely beyond our comprehension. So these people are called Chachmei Lev. Now, turn back for a second. Turn back to Parshas Miketz. Keep the marker here and go back to Parshas Miketz. This is where Yosef comes out of prison, and he interprets Paro's dream. And on page 228. So here we have one of the more remarkable reactions in history, where on 228, so Paro says Yosef interprets Paro's dreams. And Paro's next step is page Lamed, the third line from the top. Read the words inside. Vayomer Paro Yosef. After Yosef interprets the dreams, it's a prediction of the future. And he tells Paro what to do to start storing up the what do you call it? To start storing up the grain because there's going to be 7 years of plenty, then 7 years of famine. Vayomer Paro Yosef, Acharei hodia Elokim oscha es kol zos. Since God has told you this, Ein novon v'chacham kamocha. There's nobody as wise as you. How do you know? Who told him? I mean, Yosef had a good day. Doesn't mean nobody else could have done it. Hey, he happened to be Yosef. Or maybe there's some other guy lurking somewhere in Alexandria or Luxor or any of the other places. How do you know? Okay. Ata tiyal basi, you're going to be in charge of my estate. V'alpicha yishak kolayim, my entire country is going to be run based on your mouth now. Rak hakise agdol mimeka, only my throne will be bigger than you. Vayomer Paro Yosef reina sad yilcha kol eretz Mitzrayim, you're the head of Egypt. Well, that's, you go to the President of the United States, calls you in because he had a dream. And the President of the United States says, listen, interpret my dream. I dreamt that I was trying to walk up seven flights of steps and I kept falling. And I tried to give 7 interviews and I kept saying foolish things. What does it mean, kid? I said, well, sir, I'd really rather not say. I don't have my teleprompter. Well, what it means is that you're going to have 7 good years in the country and 7 bad years. There's going to be a depression, an inflation, a recession. To this day, I don't know what any of them mean. But there's going to be a recession, then there's going to be inflation, it's going to be profit, it's going to be, what do you call it? It's going to be wonderful. He goes, wow, you're good, kid. You're vice president. And not only you're the vice president, I'm clueless, so you're going to run the country. How's that? There you go. It sounds right. It sounds about right. There you go. And now you're the guy running the entire United States. Why? Because you interpret the president's. Listen, what did Yosef do? So you're good at agriculture. He gave him good agricultural advice. You know what? There's going to be a famine. Store up the grain. Why does Yosef get promoted into the position of being the king? What happened over here? So listen to carefully. And how does Paro know? How does Paro know that this is remarkable wisdom? So there's a concept like this. You know what there's the zodiac. There's the signs of the zodiac. What we call mazel. Mazel. They're called the 12 mazolos. The 12. By the way, does anybody know what the mazel of the month of Adar is? What's the mazel of the month of Adar? It's fish. Dogim. So the month of Adar is fish. Why? Not sushi. I didn't say sushi. I said fish. The mazel of the month of Adar is Dogim. There are 12 mazolos. 12 mazolos that go around in a circle according to the what do you call it? The astrological system. And there is a chokhmah. There is a discipline of astrology. Whether or not we have it nowadays, I told you what you read in the newspaper when your horoscope. They always have in the newspaper your horoscope, and it's always like you'll have a very special day today. You're going to meet somebody special. It's always it. Then you get held up with some guy who's got a Saturday night special in his hand. Yeah, that's pretty special, right? Or you're going to have a special day today and you get mugged. Yeah, that's also pretty special. That's nonsense. There is a true chachma there, which maybe as the old say, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. But there is a chachma. Now, you could have two types of wise people. You could have a person who's born with a mazel. We believe that there's a mazel. We're born with certain mazolos. You have somebody who's born and he's got the mazel of wisdom. You have another person who's born with the mazel of wealth. You have another person who's born with the mazel of handsomeness. You have another person born with the mazel of speed. Different mazolos, different things that people have. You're born under a certain mazel. There's another type of wise. There's a man who could be born. His mazel is wisdom. That's his mazel, is wisdom. You have another person who's got wisdom because it's a gift from God, not because of mazel. God has touched him directly and given him a gift right now, a gift of wisdom. How do you know the difference between the two? How do you know when it's your mazel, and how do you know when all of a sudden God has gotten involved to give somebody a personal gift that his mazel doesn't necessarily indicate? You want to hear something fascinating? Because the mazolos are in a circle. You ever notice when a wise man said, there's always a counter opinion. One person is Hillel and Shammai. There's a different mazel, there's a different approach. When somebody is a wise man, there's always usually somebody to contradict him, to hold, I see things differently. What that generally means is, this guy has born under the mazel of wisdom, and across from him in the zodiac, the other mazel, the other one of the signs of the zodiac, is the opposition. And you could assume that if somebody is opposing him, that this guy's wisdom is coming from mazel. He was born under the mazel of wisdom. Some people are born under mazel of being blood spillers. So the Gemara says if a person is born under mazel, it's called ma'adim. I think we call it Mars. Ma'adim. A person got that mazel, so he's got three options. If he's a tzaddik, he'll become a ritual circumciser, become a moil, right? You do bris milas. If he's a benoni, middle of the road, so he'll be a shochet. He'll shecht animals. And if he's a rasha, he'll be a murderer. He'll be a blood spiller. But one way or another, this guy's going to get involved with blood. Right? One way or another, maybe he'll be a doctor. Well, one way or another, that's where he gravitates to. Maybe he'll be a tzala guy. One way or another, it's a mazel. How do you know when it's a wisdom that God gave a person? It's a God-given wisdom? Nobody opposes him. He says it and there's nobody opposing him. What happened to Yosef over here? Yosef over here, he said a piece of wisdom to Paro. And not one advisor spoke up and said, well, I don't see it that way. Right? Oh, nobody opposed you. That's why Paro says, Achareho dia lokimoscha, it calls us. God has obviously let you know it. Meaning that this is not mazel. This is a special divine gift that you've been given. And therefore, with a divine gift like this, you're running my country. Now, go back to the ranch over here. I, Hashem, have filled them with wisdom. There's a divine gift over here. But there's one thing that you have to know. In life, sometimes a person has a potential that he doesn't even know about. A person's carrying a potential with him. Young people could be carrying a potential. You have a kid who plays, I'll tell you, my kid was once, I have zero musical ability. Zero. I could tap spoons on a table, but that's only when I want my food served faster. So I have zero musical ability, zero musical talent. The only thing is I have an ear for music. I know that I don't like jazz. Right? That's about as far as it goes. I don't know the first thing about classical, anything. I don't play any musical. My wife has zero musical talent. My kids, my youngest, one of my sons, he used to play with his friends. His friends would come over, and they had like a toy keyboard. Like this toy keyboard, they were, bang around on a keyboard. And one day I hear, they're in the back room, and I hear music coming out, like tunes, proper tunes coming out of the keyboard. So, sometimes keyboards are pre-programmed with a lead-in to the music. So I hear this tunes coming out. I figured, they pushed a button, they're playing a tune. So I go into the room, and my son is playing a tune on the keyboard. I said, how do you know how to do that? I don't know. Right? And this progressed, and he now plays keyboard. He taught himself how to play guitar. Who saw it? Who knew? Who saw it? How did anybody know about it? And it was there. Sometimes people have an ability and a talent that they're actually, it's sitting there. Look at how the pasuk reads. It's fascinating. Ve'ata tidaber, you speak el kol chachmei lev, to those who have a wise heart, and say the following words. Asher milesiv ruach chochma. They themselves might not even be aware of it. You have to tell them you've been filled with chochma. Sometimes in life, the biggest gift you can give a person is tell them what their potential is. These are people that don't even know. You tell them, quote, the way the pasuk reads, the plain meaning of the pasuk is, speak to the wise men who I have filled with the ruach chochma. But one of the Mefarshim says, no, what you say to them is, quote, Asher milesiv ruach chochma, that I have filled them with wisdom. Sometimes in life you have to look at a person and tell them, you got a potential. You don't even realize what you said. You said something in a shir. You made a comment, the Rebbe said, yeah, by the way, you should study more Torah. You got some tremendous potential over there. You said you gave some tzedakah. I say, you know what? I see you've got potential for generosity. Do you realize how generous? No, what did I do? You don't even know what you did. You don't realize what you did. And somebody points out what that potential is. The person doesn't see it. That's one of the biggest acts of kindness you could do, is if you see somebody, obviously you got to be qualified to pick it out, but you see somebody's got a potential. And by the way, the parents and children have to speak about this. You have to make sure that your kids, when you have kids, don't make them fulfill your potential or what you wish your potential was. You got to look at the kid and see what his potential is, guide, push him in that direction, not push him in your direction. Can't take the kid and put the what do you call it, the square force the square into the round hole, or the round into the square hole, however it goes. You have to pick out the potential of the kid himself and show him that potential. Okay, now take a look at pasuk Hey. This is pretty. This is one of the more remarkable. It seems simple, but it's one of the most remarkable things that we're going to find. He tells them to make the what do you call it, the clothing, and then in pasuk Hey, 466, 2 lines from the top. Vehem yikchu es hazav es hatcheles es argaman v'solas hashani v'es hashesh. They shall take the gold and the tcheles and the argaman. They can take all the raw materials. If I would, let's say you had somebody, you had gold. And in our world, if you ever give anybody money, if you ever make a down payment, if you ever go into a store and you pay part of it in advance, what do you immediately do? What do you do if you pay something in advance? Let's say you give a guy advance. You tell a guy, I want to order a couch. He says, okay, give me half of it up front. So you pay the guy, give the guy a check. What do you immediately do?
Take the couch?
No, the couch isn't going to be ready for 2 weeks. What do? And you give him, he says, but you have to pay part of it in advance. Give me a retainer. So you give him 1,000, couch costs 3,000 shekels, you give him 1,000 shekels. What do you then do?
Check your bank.
What do you do? If you give the guy money in advance, what do you do?
Get a receipt.
Get a receipt, of course. Get a receipt. Listen, next thing you know, and by the way, you never pay everything. You never pay everything until it's delivered. And if you ever have a guy that repairs in your house, painting or whatever it is, you never give him everything until not never. I mean, you got to pay everything until the job is completely done. Because if you pay him everything, which I once did, then you call the guy and call. Yeah, I'll be there next week. Oh, sorry, my granddaughter had a graduation, couldn't quite make it. That sort of thing. Then you hold back some of the money. Oh, then they're going to come. then they show up. So you always hold back, but you get a receipt. Here, there was no receipt, and there's no middleman. Give the guys the gold and let them go to work. How much do you trust me with your gold? Take the gold and do whatever. Gold. People went crazy for gold. People went to San Francisco for the gold rush. People went, and who made money? The Jews.
We sold shovels.
Huh? Jews sold shovels? Everybody was one out of 100 made money in San Francisco in the gold rush, and the Jews all made money. Why? Because of course the Jews didn't get their hands dirty digging through muddy streams looking for gold. What did the Jews do? Sold shovels. They sold shovels. They sold clothing. Guess what started in San Francisco, guys? It's 1849. Levi's jeans. That's right. Levi is not an Italian name, by the way, even though it ends in a vowel. Levi is a Jewish name. And why did Levi make it? He sold them a fabric and a material that they could go digging in streams, muddy streams with, and he made a fortune. Because we had a guy in high school in the Yeshivat dormitory. On snow days, we would ditch class and go shovel snow around the neighborhood and make some money. There's one guy in the dorm who never did that because it's cold outside. What did he do? He supplied the shovels. Right? He's Jewish. Right? He's Jewish. Maybe he had ancestors in San Francisco. Right? At the end of the day, he wasn't going to get himself cold. You get frostbite. We'd go trudging around, make a couple of bucks. This guy he rented out the shovels. He had a supply of shovels. He was a dorm guy. I was an in-towner. He was a dorm guy. So he rented a shovel. Then he went out, and he got, what do you call it? So here, there was no accounting for the gold. There's no accounting for the gold. Hey, they took the gold. Complete, total trust. Do we ever trust anybody with gold? More than that. We learn halacha here. There's a halacha comes out of this. In every community, let's say you have, in every Jewish community, the Rambam writes, there's never been a Jewish community that does not have some sort of tzedakah fund, a communal tzedakah fund. There are guys running the tzedakah fund. They do not have a halachic obligation to give an accounting of the money. The people who are running a charity fund do not have a halachic obligation to give an accounting. If there are guys running the shul, you have a shul, and the shul has a fund. Every shul has money that goes in. People make donations for the aliyahs and that sort of thing. The people who are the guys in charge of it, do not have a halachic obligation to give anybody an accounting. If they're in the position and they've been appointed to the position, there's a certain trust that they have. Now, what they should do is they should give some sort of annual report, because there's a pasuk that we mentioned in the past, V'hiyisem nekim me'Hashem u'miYisrael, if they keep a clean reputation. And that sometimes a person who's involved with money, remember we talked about if you're ever doing something and people wonder about what you're doing, it doesn't look so kosher. For example, let's say it's Gemara time at 10:30 in the morning, and one of the guys doesn't show up. You don't show up to the Gemara. So you should tell one of the rabbis, so they shouldn't think you're just lazy. You should tell one of the rabbis, well, yesterday I had to go pick up my grandmother at the airport. Right? Just make sure there were no cameras there, because we'll check the cameras and see if your grandmother really came in. Considering she died 7 years ago, it'd be pretty funny. But you should keep a clean reputation. So you should give a report. But they were trusted with the gold, and they don't have to give a report. Okay. Now take a look at pasuk Tetzaveh. V'asisa choshen mishpat. Now this is like the main feature of the Kohen Gadol. The main feature that everybody always thinks is the stones that the Kohen Gadol bore, these gemstones. By the way, the names, all the gems, there's a ruby, the gemstone. He's going to tell us the rows. Let's see them. V'asisa choshen mishpat maaseh choshev kemaaseh ifot tasenu. Zahav tcheles ve'argomet v'lashonev sheish rosher tazel. So that's the chest plate in the picture over there. Then he says, Ravua yeh kafel zeres orko v'zeres rachbo, that's the width. And it's going to tell about 4 rows of stones. Umileisa bo miluas even arba turim oven. 4 rows of stone. Tur odem pitada uvarekes atur echad. Now these are all the gemstones that we know of. The first, an odem, if I'm not mistaken, is a ruby. And a pitada is a emerald. What's the green one? The green one's the emerald? Yes. Emerald. Ruby is red? Yes. Ruby is red. Now, what color is sapphire? Blue. Sapphire is blue. Okay, so these are all the stuff. There's emeralds, rubies, sapphires, pearls. What else is there? Topaz. Topaz is also green, isn't it? It's like a light green. And all the various gemstones that you have. He wore 12 precious stones on his chest. Each stone was connected to one of the tribes, and there's a reason it's connected. We'll see tomorrow if we have time to talk about it. And each one of these stones, according to Rabbeinu Bechai, who's one of the Rishonim, is the elements, right? There are elements that come out of in chemistry. What were those called? The elements, the periodic table. Yeah, that was a periodic table, all right, because periodically I went to class and heard about the table. But the what do you call it? I have better tables, by the way. I like pool tables much more, and certainly a food table. A periodic table, chemistry was not my main subject, was not my best subject. Neither was history, math, science. But the chemistry we certainly didn't care for that very much. In any event, those elements are what's called, they're the basic elements, right? And everything comes out of them. These stones, all the stones, according to the commentaries, these are the 12 stones which are the basic element stones. All other precious gemstones come somehow are connected or attached to these. Okay, that we'll talk about more tomorrow. What I want to show you here is like this. What did they do with this Choshen Mishpat? Each stone had the names of a tribe written on it. There's a lot of discussion exactly how they wrote it. Now, when the Kohen Gadol wore this chest plate, it folded over, and then he had the stones. It was folded over, and on one side of it there was the stones, and the thing was like folded in two. The fabric was folded in two with the stones embedded in gold, in a gold what's it called? A gold frame. And inserted inside here was what's called the Urim v'Tumim, which means God's names. One was a 42-letter name, the 42-letter name. One is a 72-letter, what's called the Shem HaMefurash. When they had an issue, the Kohen Gadol would consult the Urim v'Tumim. Letters would light up. It was really cool. Like, for example, if the Jewish people, should we go to war? When should we go to war? What certain issues would come up. So stones, letters would light up, and then the Kohen, with Ruach HaKodesh, would draw a conclusion of what these letters are spelling out. So, for example, there was a woman in the Beis HaMikdash named Chana, who was the mother of whom? Shmuel HaNavi. And she was in the Beis HaMikdash davening, and Eli HaKohen looked at her, and he saw she was doing something very strange. She was davening without making a sound. So he thought she was shikora. He thought she was drunk. Why? He consulted with the Urim v'Tumim, says the Vilna Gaon, and the letters Shin, Chaf, Resh, Hey came up. So he put those letters together, and the letters Shin, Chaf, Resh, Hey spell shikora. He said, "You're drunk. Lama do it tishta korin. Why did you drink, lady? You're in the base of me. You're davening over here." And she said to him, "No, you're making a mistake. Because those same letters spell the word kshera, which means proper, good, like kosher in a feminine form. You read it as shikora, that I'm drunk. I'm kshera. So why am I davening? Why am I davening quietly? Because I'm a sad, bitter-hearted woman because I don't have children. So you misread it. You thought that because it was apparently in those days when you daven louder. And she was like that. So Eli thought the lady's drunk. What's she doing? Where did that come from? It's how you arrange the letters in the Choshen. Now, you'll notice, this is what I want to get to. The word Choshen, take a look at that word Choshen again very closely. What pasuk is it? Pasuk Tetzaveh. V'asisa Choshen Mishpat. Look at the word Choshen closely, gentlemen. Now, this is the thing that you consulted, and there was Ruach HaKodesh, and it was a spiritual happening. What, if you rearrange the letters of Choshen, what do you get? What do you get if you rearrange the letters of Choshen? Ches, Shin, Nun. Forget the Nun Sofis. Pretend it's a regular Nun. What do you get if you rearrange it? What else? What else? You're close. Starting with the Nun. Nun Nachash, which is what? Snake. Nachash is a snake. Nachash is a serpent. Right? What's the connection? Not only a Nachash is a snake. Nichush means like superstition. Various forms. And by the way, there were in the ancient world there were supernatural forms of nichush. Nichush means what's a better word? A general word for superstition. What do you call it? Fortune telling. That area, that whole area of fortune telling. You know, in the old days they could bring up a dead body. Shaul HaMelech consulted with a woman who could actually raise the soul of Shmuel HaNavi. What do they call it now? Ouija boards, that sort of thing. All this stuff is all in the category of nichush, superstition. You know, you're worried. Oh, I saw a black cat cross my path. Ooh, nichush. That's superstition. Sure, it's bad luck. A black cat is usually a panther, right? That's bad luck. If you see a panther, that's pretty bad. Right? If a guy walking under a ladder is bad luck. You sure is a bad luck, especially if a guy's got a heavy bucket of paint up there. I assume that all superstitions like this Probably somebody had a bad experience. Some guy was walking along, and he got seriously mauled by a panther, and he decided a black cat is bad luck. It is bad luck if it's a panther. And some guy was walking under a ladder. The guy from the ladder fell and got killed, and this guy got nailed with a bucket of paint. And all of a sudden, looking under a ladder, it is bad. Not only is bad luck, it's common sense not to do it. What are you walking under a ladder for? Yeah. Guy looked in the mirror, and the mirror cracked. Right? Oh, it's bad luck if a mirror cracks. It sure is. That means you probably hit your face on the mirror and got good serious cuts. That's what it means. So I imagine there was a little bit of common sense here, maybe a little bit. But what is it? What's the connection? Why is Choshen, Nachash, which means what's the connection? What's the connection? What do you say?
I would say because we see from that previous interpretation being incorrect, it can be deceiving, or you may get a
Close.
response.
You're very close. In other words, both of them are using some sort of, certainly in the ancient world, you're tapping into a higher force. The higher forces that they used for nichush were the forces of impurity, whereas the choshen is tapping in with the forces of kedusha, with the force of Ruach HaKodesh. What would the Nachash, the original serpent, what was his claim? His claim is, there's no such thing as a God telling you what to do. That means that the entire idea here is God's intervention. It's direct intervention. God's causing letters to light up. You're seeing letters lighting up, and based on that, you're drawing interpretations. So the concept of a Nachash is denial of that force from the outside, and then you're resorting to all sorts of forces of impurity. And therefore the Choshen and the Nachash are very much related. The Nachash, the original Nachash, represents everything. Remember, a Nachash in general is anything no good as a snake. Right? Most people don't like snakes. Most people have an aversion to snakes. So the Nachash represents always something which is outside of the Torah system. Whereas the Choshen is a pretty cool thing. You go over there, you consult with the Kohen Gadol, and there were limitations. You can't just consult for anything. But could you just imagine if a Beis and a Yud light up on the Choshen? A Beis lights up and a Yud. You just said, what should I do about the stock market? And it says a Beis lights up and a Yud lights up, which spells buy. Right? So unfortunately, we couldn't use the Choshen for that. It was limited. It was used for limited things. But you're talking about over here, the Kohen Gadol tapping in with Ruach HaKodesh and being able to bring about a result. Okay, we'll see tomorrow more about these stones.